In this week's Hello Dave, we're going to be talking about Odyssey, and a player might have uncovered why the performance is the way it is. We're going to be talking about starports falling from orbit, and finally we're going to look at the live streams coming this week. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hello Dave. We're down with Astronomy. First of all, of course, last week we had Odyssey finally launching, and this was the first time, of course, we got our chance to go in on the live servers and play around with Odyssey on our main characters, begin to unlock the engineers, look at all the new content. I personally have been having an absolute blast over the last, half week now, exploring all the new stuff. This is just like starting over on a brand new game, and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm having a wonderful time. That being said, the launch didn't go without its own little hiccups. Of course, right after launch, we had the usual server issues, as we always do, but they've been a little bit more severe this time. There's still some of them around. Sometimes it can still be difficult to log in and get a connection, but it's really intermediate. Sometimes it just works flawlessly. You get a connection instantly. Other times it can take a minute or two or a few tries before you get access. There's also been a number of bugs in game. First, right after the launch, there was a bug where a fleet carrier seemed to do a double tick on the upkeep. That has now been fixed. And this was not something that's too uncommon. I mean, we see this all the time with BGS, that systems will do a double tick around updates, sometimes even triple ticks. That has happened before. So a lot of weird stuff often happens with the BGS around this, and I think it's something similar. This just happened here, that the fleet carriers just did a double week, and again Frontier fixed it, and all the prices on fleet carriers and the modules and upkeeps are now back to their normal levels as they were before Odyssey. There are two other bugs though that I do want to mention, because they can be quite annoying if you do encounter them. One of them is when moving modules around and moving modules into storage. The default option now is to sell modules rather than put them into storage. Now, that means if you are moving engineered modules around, you can end up by accident selling your engineered modules, and there's apparently no warning message as it is at the moment. So hopefully that's something they're going to fix pretty soon. I just want to mention this as a warning. If you are moving modules around, be very careful what you do. Keep an eye on the interface so you do not end up accidentally selling your modules. The other bug I just want to mention right now is when you're taking missions where there is a engineering material reward. That could be you're running passenger missions in Rubigo and you're looking for exquisite focus crystals. When you take that reward, there is, I'm not sure if it's immediate or if it's every time, but you can end up in a situation where the materials will be reset. So let's say you had 40 exquisite focus crystals, you get a mission with 5 as a reward. Instead of you having 45 as you should, it will reset and you will only get 5. That, of course, is a very, very annoying bug, so also be careful with that and wait until we have confirmation of that bug being fixed before running around doing any missions. It seems to be working okay for the on-foot part. I haven't had any issues with that at least, but for the ship-based missions, then do be careful when selecting engineering material rewards. Now, the other big talking point, of course, last week was the performance of Odyssey. A lot of people have seen very poor performance compared to what you would expect. There's been a lot of discussions around it. It seems that they may be dependent on what architecture your CPU is running. So some AMD CPUs seems to be performing worse than even lower grade Intel CPUs in some cases. But I haven't looked into it myself. But one of the things that I found was very interesting was there was a user called Solid Marsupial who posted a very interesting post on Reddit. He's apparently a graphic engineer, and he began to dissect the Elite graphic engine, or at least the render engine, to see what it was actually doing when rendering a frame in Elite Dangerous, what was it spending its time on. Now, the main takeaway I got from reading that article, or that Reddit post, was that Elite seems to be lacking a feature called cooling. Now, if you're not familiar with it, well, I wasn't, so I had to look it up. But cooling is a optimization method you use in games to prevent to avoid rendering objects that are not needed to be rendered. There are two types of cooling as far as I know. There are frustum cooling and occlusion cooling. Now, occlusion cooling is if you are looking at something, and even though it might be in your field of view, if it is blocked by something, that could be a door or something like that, a wall or something, there's no need to render it. So that means if you're running around inside a base in Odyssey and you're looking at a wall, there's no need to render all the crates and all the stuff behind that wall because well, you don't need it. That's occlusion cooling. The other one is called frustum cooling. Everything outside your field of view is just being disregarded. This is obviously a little bit easier to calculate since you don't need to do any, like, is this object actually in your field of view things? But anything outside your field of view is just not being rendered. That's called frustum cooling. According to the Reddit post, it seems that Elite does neither of the two. Now, if that is the case, then there is a potential for a huge amount of optimization. Just the frustum cooling alone, if we do some back of the envelope, I mean, if it's actually rendering everything, even the stuff behind you, and if you have a 90-degree field of view, well, that means that 2/3 of all the stuff being rendered could be removed, which is a huge amount. However, I did very briefly doing one of my live streams notice that if I was looking out a window, if I was at a surface base looking out a window, I would get significantly lower frame rates than if I was just looking at a wall or at a stand or at a shop or something like that. So it definitely seems like they are doing some kind of cooling because, well, again, when we're looking at stuff outside, if you have this big open vistas to look at, then it hurts your frame rate more than if you just have your little station interior to look at. Now again, Solid Marsupial here probably knows like a ton more about this compared to what I do, so I'm not gonna pretend to be an expert on this, and he's probably closer to the truth than I am. But at least from in-game experience, it seems that there is at least some effect, and it might be something else that I'm not aware of. Again, I'm not a graphical engineer, but at least it's a very interesting article, and I recommend you go and read it. I posted it in the comment section, so you can go and check that out. And at the least, it gives hope that there is some relatively easy things that can be enabled or be added that should help with the performance in Odyssey quite significantly. Now, of in-game events, there was a accidental event that was about to happen. The Oracle starport in Defi was actually falling from orbit, losing altitude, and on a crash course towards its parent object. Unfortunately, it turned out that was a bug, it was unintended, and it is now back in its original orbit and has been fixed. Now, I would have loved, though, if that was an actual, like, imagine that as a launch event, that all of a sudden a starport falls out of its orbit. You could come up with some lore event why that would happen, or maybe have us investigate why it would happen. But a starport all of a sudden loses altitude, falls out of orbit, crashes into a moon or a planet somewhere, and then we would have this huge crashed starport that we could go out on foot now and investigate. There would be fires everywhere. We would have to go and try to solve some kind of mystery and figure out who deorbit the station, how does it deorbit. That would have been a massive fun event, I think. Unfortunately, it was just a bug, but hopefully Frontier got some inspiration here, and maybe, who knows, we're gonna see something like that in the future, because I think that would actually be a pretty cool event. Finally, I just quickly want to talk about the live stream tomorrow. Of course, I'm going to be live streaming at 7 o'clock in-game time, business as usual, both on YouTube and on Twitch. The topic for tomorrow will be engineering unlocking. If everything goes according to plan, I should have my first 2 engineers unlocked tomorrow, maybe, perhaps. And I'll be focusing on my 3rd engineer, so that will probably be a lot of conflict zones, which I also think could be quite fun to watch doing a live stream. It's a little bit more fast-paced, a little bit more action-packed. Yeah, that will be tomorrow, and again, it will be at 7 o'clock in-game time on YouTube and on Twitch. I hope I will see you there. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in space.